You can go now. You pillock.
Wow. Good evening and welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Now, I have on occasion used this platform to have a little moan at the expense of the BSPA. It's almost a sport in Speedway circles, isn't it? Today is different. Today, I have to say that collectively and individually during this crisis, the members of the BSPA have stood up. The different ways they have used quiz nights, looking back at videos, even a fully fledged virtual match at the Isle of Wight. Just for once, this next phrase is meant in a good way. Only in Speedway.
Well done.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Fantastic introduction, ladies.
It'll do. Until I can think of something better. Right, well, good evening. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. We have in the Speedway Tavern tonight, Chris, I'm going to call you Dials Brown.
Just call me Chris. I need a haircut, Brown.
Well, there is there. I think we're all there. We're all there. We've also got our friend Matt Buck.
Good evening.
Special guest, Mattie Bates.
Hey.
How you doing, Mattie?
Very well, thank you.
So, as per normal, for tonight's show, I did a little bit of research on you. By research, I mean I look at Wikipedia. Not a lot there, mate.
The ultimate professional.
That sums me up.
Yeah.
Not a lot there.
So we know when you was born, where you was born, and that you're now the co-promoter and team manager of Plymouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it. So I guess my first question is, how did you get involved in Speedway?
Well, I grew up in the next street to the county ground. So I always just obviously hear it and stuff, and started going over with my cousin. And then my dad used to go back in like the 70s and stuff, but then stopped. And then my dad got back into it, and yeah, just fell in love with it. And I did go a few times with my mates, but we used to sneak over the back wall because we could never have money to go in. So, but then we discovered like after heat 9 or 10, it was free to go in, so we used to go then. But no, I started going again with my my cousin and my dad, and just got the bug and fell in love with it.
And by the county ground, of course, you mean Exeter, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big track from what I remember.
A bit of a unique place, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I always say, like, obviously I've been involved with Speedway quite a while now, but at the point when I started getting into it and riding, I'd only really been watching Speedway for like 2 or 3 seasons, so I don't have as many happy memories there as a lot of people I've met through Speedway. But no, it was definitely a unique place. It's greatly missed, but it's unfortunately another bit of land that went to development, and now there's some pretty hideous houses out there. So
unfortunately, too, a story that too many people will sort of know and have been part of happened at Birmingham, Cradley. I mean, let's not to be too depressed. So, when did you first get your leg over a Speedway bike?
yeah,
Stop it.
You've been dying to ask that question all day.
Oh no!
it was 2002. Me and my dad went to the Cardiff GP. And I was browsing through the program and saw Ollie Nygren ride a slide day at Kings Lynn. It was like a 2-day weekend. So me and my dad went up there, and that was a great experience because if anyone's ever been to Ollie's schools when he was doing them, the bikes were kind of like duct taped and cable tied together at points, and like you had this big box where you had to try and grab some levers and gloves, and it was like gardening gloves, and so it was all very cowboy-esque, but at the same time it was great. I mean, Ollie is a great guy, and he had some cool stories to tell over the weekend. But no, I done that. I rode a 125. Was obsessed with it, and then about 2 months later, my dad got me a 350 Jawa from Alan Bellham, so we went back up to Kings Lynn and picked that up, and kind of went from there, really.
And now, of course, you're a team manager.
Yeah.
as well as a promoter. So, what does a team manager do? I mean, we all know what we all think that we're going to be the best team managers in the world, and I'm sure you understand that. But what does a team manager actually do? It isn't just telling which riders to go out when.
No, I mean, I think for me, I mean, obviously everyone has their own sort of way of doing it and their own, sort of method to it. But with me, obviously being a rider at National League level, once upon a time, it's obviously letting the guys know what heats and helmet colours they're in and gates and stuff. But you're almost like a team captain, kind of. I always call myself like the team dad, even though I'm usually like younger than some of the guys. But it's just making sure that you're relaying as much information to them, and they're getting the best out of you that can make their performance better. Obviously you're going through your scorecard and seeing if you need to make changes or tack subs where you can do that. But it's also just obviously you do get the odd riders that struggle, but it's just reassuring them that you have every faith in them, and just trying to G them up really, and just trying to outsmart the other team manager. And I mean, I think not the hardest thing about it, but is obviously keeping an eye on your own team, but then also watching the other team individual riders' performance, seeing where you can sort of make changes to strengthen you up in those heats. But overall, it's just kind of I guess it's like being a Speedway dad, just making sure all the guys are good, they're all acting as a team should, and it's sometimes it's frustrating because obviously I was a rider, but I wasn't like a top National League rider even. I was I was just kind of like a half decent second string at best, I suppose. But it's one of those things, like some of the best boxing trainers have never been in a ring, so you're trying to tell some more experienced guys like maybe you should try this and maybe you should try that, and they kind of look at you sometimes like okay, but no, I mean it's been a pretty pleasant experience. When Mark offered me the job in 2018 doing it, obviously I'd never done it before. I was fresh out of from racing the previous season with Eastbourne, so I didn't know if I was going to be any good. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm very good now, but I have fun with it, and I try to get the best out of the like every manager does, I suppose, try and get the best out of their individual riders, and just try and make it more of a, we're not just a team, we're friends and we're a family, and let's sort of look out for each other and stay safe. That's really my main priority.
I'm going to turn you over to Matt now, because I bet he's done more than just look at Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I mean, you've just given us sort of a little bit of a background there into how you got involved in becoming a team manager and co-promoter at with Mattie. I mean, how did it really come about? Was it something that you came out of the blue, or was it something that you'd been looking at for a period of time, even while you were still racing?
I'd always been interested in the team managing aspect, but I kind of thought for me, personally, it'd be like maybe 10 years after I finished riding. Obviously when I stopped riding, me and my partner had a child, so I was like, right, I'm going to be a dad and go back to Speedway in some way later down the line. And Henry Ackland's dad, Mike, contacted me, and because Lawrence had gone to Birmingham because he was co-promoter with Mark in 2017. And Mark messaged me on Facebook and said, I've heard you've retired. And I thought it was about like a team place, and then he sort of said about the team managing thing, and I was like, well, that'd be cool, because I have no bikes to clean. Not that I rarely clean my bikes anyway. That was kind of my dad's project. But I thought, I'll give it a go. For me, it was the best thing to still be a part of a team, but not have that risk of riding and injury and stuff. And I just loved it. It took me a few meetings to sort of get my head into it and get the confidence to, sort of speak up to the riders and stuff like that. And it was I think the biggest factor for me was the change of I'm your manager, but I'm your friend, but trying to get that healthy balance of the two. But no, I enjoyed it from the get-go, really. And my grandfather actually was the first ever Exeter Falcons captain in 1947. And when he retired, he became the Falcons team manager for a few seasons. So it's sort of like a history repeating itself, I suppose. But no, I thoroughly enjoy it. I do miss the racing sometimes, but it's nice to know I don't have to clean stuff and slide off in the first bends, because I was known for that towards the end of my career. So
it seems to be a bit of an in thing at the moment, isn't it? Because with yourself, obviously we had Barry on last week there, and David Mason, of course, at Birmingham. There's a few riders who've had recent racing career who've now decided to go on to the other side and become team managers and promoters. So it seems to be something that seems to be on the up at the moment. And of course, Chris Louis Ipswich taking over from his father, who of course was a rider himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me a big factor of it was Speedway has been so good to me, and it's given me so much. The friends I now consider family, and everywhere you go in the country, there's people and Speedway is that tight knit community that's almost like family. So for me, it was trying to give something back, because I've been treated so well through it. And Plymouth, I've been there since they reopened, obviously originally as a rider. So it was sort of nice to have that opportunity with Plymouth and sort of go back and try and give as much back to the sport as it's given me.
I've got a question here from Ben. He says, Mattie, in your Eastbourne days, some of the banter between you and Luke Bowen was awesome. Do you have any highlights?
Where to start, really? It was quite funny with me and Luke, because we never disliked each other, even though it sometimes come across like that. It was just purely for us, obviously, because it was that rivalry of Eastbourne and Kent anyway. It was just trying to put bums in seats, really.
Yeah.
I mean, because I did say to a few people, I mean, you only have to look at sort of Luke and me, and you've got a clear winner every time. If me and Luke raced 10 times, I'd maybe beat him once if I was lucky. So it was never like that. It was just more to put bums in seats. But I think it was the playoffs, I believe, in 2017, and we had Kent. And I was being interviewed for the rerun videos production before the meeting, and Luke, just in the middle of the interview, come over and handed me this inflatable Boeing 747, which I've still got. And then we won the meeting because it was the second leg, and I duct taped it to in front of my mudguard for parade. And in between heat 15 and the parade, Luke had gone with a screwdriver and punctured it. So we'd duct taped it all up and blew it up again, and it was sort of half inflated. And then when we went out on parade, Conor Dugard was sat on the back of my bike, and he was just sort of pretending to fly it as we were going past the Kent fans, which obviously they hated, but it was all just in the good of the sport, really. You hear all these stories from back in the 60s and stuff, and how riders would put sugar in each other's tanks and stuff like that. And I guess it's the modern version of a bit of camaraderie between the teams and the riders. But no, it was all in good spirits and good fun. And me and Luke, we're pretty good friends now and talk quite regularly on Facebook. So no, it's just good. It definitely worked, putting bums in seats for that Eastbourne and Kent meeting.
It reminds me of the story. I think Matt will probably know who this is. So I can't remember who it was now. But there was a particular promoter when there was two riders from the opposing teams had a go at each other in the pits, and he says, "Don't do it here. Do it out in front where everybody can see you." So it's exactly, and it's like you say, there isn't that many characters that do that sort of thing these days.
No, I mean, you talk about characters, and I think the last one we've seen is obviously Danny Ayres. He really was the pinnacle of what a showman should be in this sport. And I think it'll be a long time before you get someone sort of replace that. But you just got to. I mean, I wrote a kind of little rant on Facebook actually the other day. And I always hear these stories of like the glory days of like the 70s and the 80s, and I sort of, obviously that was way before my time, but I look back at footage of that and I'm like, you know, the racing was good, and you know the riders were great riders, but the sport, obviously with the laydowns coming in and stuff like that, the sport has really excelled in the form of the aggression you ride the bike and what's sort of doable on the bikes. But I think people don't so much miss the racing back then. It's like you say, the characters. I mean, you look at Ivan Major and, you know, Bruce Pennell, Kenny Carter. They were all, you know,
larger than life.
They were all like sort of rock stars of Speedway. And, you know, we've got, you know, people like Nicky Pedersen and, you know, Jason Doyle and Ty, obviously, and they've got that big sort of name and when they're at a Speedway track. But I mean, you know, Bruce Pennell went into making like a few TV series after and stuff. It was, you know, Charlie's Angels or something, was it he was on?
Let's go with that.
It's way before my time anyway.
It's funny actually, because I mean I've had those conversations, and I remember because I watched racing in the 70s, and you know I loved it. It was great. I wouldn't say it was better or worse than now. And I always remember having conversations with my dad, and it was along the same line. Oh, it was much better in my day. We had better characters. So I just think it's something that you just always look back on things with perhaps with slightly rose-coloured glasses. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like myself. Like, I guess when I'm a bit older, I'll look back to my days and be like, you know, the glory days of when I was riding with my buddies and stuff. But I think the sad thing for me is, I mean, my dad was a Falcon supporter in the 70s, like, you know, during the Ivan Major and Scott Autry days, when they had that dream team in 74. And he says, you know, you'd have thousands of people like pack in to watch it. And it really was a spectacle. And I just look at the sport now and I'm just like, but it's still so good. And I just don't understand why it's not received by the public better than it could be. And I just genuinely do think it's down to those rider profiles opposed to the actual sport. I mean, I think people do want more than 15 heats of racing and maybe 6 second half races. You know, Barry said on one of your previous shows that it needs to be a spectacle, you know, but I think it's also about making those riders seem larger than life and those fans really connecting to them, like, you know, like the heroes, I suppose.
Well, I mean, talking about heroes, I mean, that was the other thing, is you would have riders that were with a club for all of their career, almost in those days, and wouldn't be riding for other clubs at the same time. And so they are your riders, and you identify with them. So I think that's one of the big things that's gone from the sport, is the connection between the riders and the fans, because, you know, Scott Nichols might be riding for you this year. Where's he going to be riding next year? And so,
oh, by the way, it was Chips. It was Chips that Bruce.
Chips.
Many thanks, Simon, for that.
I think Kenny Carter once described that as his least favourite TV programme. I don't know why.
Alan Atherton wants to know, how's the crowdfunding going?
It's for the new stand. It's going good. It sort of dipped the last day or two, which I guess is expected because you know, the novelty sort of wears off after a couple of days of people sharing it and stuff. But no, it's gone really good. You know, the new stand as it is already is looking great. And
yeah, I've just seen a picture of it. Yeah, it looks good.
And I was saying the other day to Jerry, who sort of runs our social media stuff, the last time I remember seeing a track where you so close to the track with this like sort of spectator viewing was Exeter on that home straight, because you literally were up against the fence. But I think, yeah, you know, Mark just thought, right, we'll go big or go home, and we'll see if we can sort of fund some money to make it a bit more comfortable for people to watch. But, you know, it'd be kind of cool, like back in the day when people used to, you know, get seats in memory of someone or reserve a seat for the season. Because, you know, my friend Steve Luxton, me and him sort of done this Speedway rider helpline for mental health issues and stuff. You know, and we've spoke about it and sort of said, you know, we'd like to sort of put some money in and get some sort of seats in memory of Danny Blair and Tony Dart. So it's just trying to keep it fresh. I mean, obviously people share it and like it, but the same thing, it can have that Achilles heel effect where you see it too much and you're just like, oh, I feel like I'm seeing this now. But no, it's going good. It's going better than I thought it would at this point. So hopefully we'll just keep that rolling and we'll have some nice shiny new seats if the season does start this season.
I think Plymouth have got a new disabled stand as well now, haven't they? I've seen a photograph of it somewhere. So.
Yeah, it used to be outside the referee's box, but obviously because the new stand's taken up the whole straight now, and we sort of looked at it with the viewing, because as you come off bend 2, there's like a bit of a grass banking that goes down. So we've put it there just as you go onto the back straight, so it's a bit higher and you can just see a bit more of the track. So, I haven't really been down the track as much as I'd like to have been. Obviously due to the COVID and my partner being a key worker, so I've been at home looking after our son. But Mark and the team down there and Ian Jordan have really been going around the stadium and getting what it would be like to be a spectator with the viewing and just trying to make as many improvements that way so you're always sort of looking into the track and not sort of trying to look up over the fence. And I mean, they've done a great job. The few times I have been down there, I've seen what they've done, and it's just, every time I go down there, there's a massive improvement. And I just hope the season does get underway this season in some capacity, just so everyone can sort of see and experience it for themselves, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think we might see big crowds if it gets going, because everybody's absolutely gasping for proper live, real sport at the moment.
Anything.
Yeah.
Subbuteo.
Tiddlywinks, yeah.
Live Subbuteo will do. Drafts.
I mean, I think with this whole COVID thing, that's the only blessing that's going to come out of it, is people are really eager to go out and watch any sort of sport live. So,
absolutely, yeah.
And they'll be fed off of watching the telly, hopefully. So, hopefully it will see a few more people, even if they're, not a genuine Speedway fan or genuinely a football fan, actually go and experience these just to get out of the house and experience something new.
Yeah,
it'd be great to see some more kids at Speedway, I think, as well, wouldn't it? So,
oh god, yeah, it would.
These plastic things that seem to be permanently attached to their hands.
Well, talking of the new season, I think I'd be hung by some of your own fans if I didn't ask this one. When are you going to sign your 7th rider?
When we find him. No, I mean, our initial thought was there was a few guys in the loop, because we only had 3.13 left to play with. And there was a couple guys from last year that fit in, but it's trying to choose who and, not hurt the other one, even though, unfortunately it's the business side of Speedway. But we were hoping to run a few practices pre-season and get people down to sort of like they used to in the olden times and sort of try out and see who sort of mingles with the current team better. Because as much as you want a good rider, there's no point of having a rider in your team if he's great, but he's not going to look out for his teammates. But, I'd rather have a bunch of 4.2s or 5.1s and, 2 riders riding together and racing each other and one coming off or they're both coming off. So it's just trying to find someone that fits in with the mold of the new team and, someone that obviously doesn't mind the travelling, because Plymouth is so far from everywhere else in the National League, especially. But no, I mean, there is a few people in the running for it. It's just, I think now, obviously, we will have to make a decision if the season does go ahead without having these sort of trial rides. But hopefully soon we can sort of confirm who it's going to be and let everyone know.
Yeah, I think we've woke everybody up regarding Speedway.
Yes.
Speedway in the 70s and 80s. Better in the 70s and 80s, better crowds, more tracks, better riders. And Duncan Pemberton says, I don't think he does it in a Yorkshire accent, but I do know. When you witness there's Tuesday night local. No, I can't do it. Forget that.
Your accent, don't ever do that again.
No, okay, I won't. Leicester versus Coventry in the mid-70s with thousands in the stadium. No rose-tinted glasses required. Racing good to brilliant, but atmosphere 10 out of 10.
I think that's the thing. Everyone I speak to, they say as much as the racing was good and the characters were, as we said earlier, larger than life, it was the atmosphere. I mean, my dad said he remembers going even when he was a little kid back in like the very early 60s, and his granddad would sit him up on the steel fence and you'd watch the bikes go by. And obviously with health and safety, you can't do that now, but he said just there's such a buzz about the place. And, I mean, you look at, obviously I'm going to go on Exeter here, but it was so outdated come the end, but there was still such a special feeling about the place because of, obviously the crowds had dropped off, but it still held that sort of old school atmosphere. But no, I think that's a big thing that Speedway is lacking, its atmosphere. But I think that's where obviously the TV deals and the social media side of things has killed it a bit, because obviously as great as social media is for obviously what we're doing now and trying to promote the sport, it also has that back effect where if someone's got something negative to say, they're just going to go say it, which is fine because everyone's entitled to opinion. But as Barry Bishop said, if you've got something good to say about it, tell the world. If you've got something bad to say, tell the promoter, because they're the only people that can change that experience for you. And I think I'm very much against negative stuff anyway, because obviously it's a sport I love and like we all do. And I see stuff and I don't agree with it, and stuff happens and I don't agree with it. But I'm like, I'd rather see teams running under which regulations or which league or which total team averages. I'd just rather see Speedway teams running than what happened to Buxton and stuff where they closed down because they couldn't fund the the riders and stuff. And Buxton was never, for me personally, an enjoyable place to go to. It just wasn't a track I liked. But, it's so sad that the place is shut down because it's, again, another track. But, I said to my dad a few weeks ago, actually, I was like, as much as I'm a Plymouth co-promoter, I want to promote the sport because the sport is really good and it's really exciting. And, I don't want to be like an old man and there'll not be any Speedway racing, you know what I mean? And, I want to be able to take my grandkids when I have them to Speedway. I don't want it to sort of go extinct like the dinosaurs did. So, it's just, for me, it's all trying to keep things positive, and especially if someone's new to Speedway. Like, we've had it a few times at Plymouth where people have come for the first time in the summer holidays and they've brought their kids, and the kids are like, oh, wow, this is cool. It's a bit of a spectacle. And then you'll have fans that it's not been the best meeting they've seen in the season. Like, oh, this is rubbish. And then those new people go away thinking, oh, actually, it wasn't that good because they come every week. So we won't bother going back there again. But, it's personal preference. I mean, I've seen meetings and I thought that was a bad meeting. But then other people are like, oh, that was so good. And, vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, it's just enjoying. It is, definitely. But for me, it's just enjoying the sport and just appreciating the sport, really, because for something that was once second to football to now, I mean, if you go on TripAdvisor for Plymouth, I think Plymouth's Speedway is the 35th thing to see, and I'm like, why is it that far down? Why is there a Chinese all-you-can-eat buffet at number 10? You know what I mean? It's bizarre, but it's I mean, that's where the power of social media can come into effect, because if everyone's writing these reviews on TripAdvisor for their tracks, or even if they're an away fan traveling and they have a good experience and share that on stuff like TripAdvisor, when people are going, especially down to the southwest, to Devon and Cornwall, and they look on TripAdvisor, it's going to be there and be like, oh, we'll go check that out, and that'll work so well for other tracks as well. It's just trying to introduce new people and keep them wanting more, but at the same time still keeping that hardcore group that have been going for God knows how long, because they've kept the sport going this far. But the sad reality is, and we had an Exeter Falcons 90th anniversary last year in Exeter, And it was great. There was, a few hundred people there, and we had former Exeter riders come down, and I sort of looked around, and it's a bit morbid, but I was like, Jesus, if we really do get this track back in Exeter, I mean, half these people might not even be alive to see it, and it's a really sad thing. So for me, just trying to keep everything positive and writing positive stuff. And as Barry said, if you do have an issue with the entertainment or the value for money you feel like you're getting with the entertainment, speak to your promoters, because they're the only people that can sort it for you.
Yeah, I agree.
And T-Boy Clifton, hi Ben, nice to hear from you. I think he's sort of hit the nail on the head a little bit here. He says, the problem is everyone wants characters. The moment a character turns up, people then slaughter them on social media for being a character.
Yeah.
And so it sort of, that talks to what you were saying about social media earlier.
I mean, the thing is with the social media is, obviously, back when I was younger, we didn't really have it it wasn't as big as it is now, but we had obviously the Speedway forums, and it was always the golden rule: don't read the Speedway forums, because you're going to read stuff on there that probably going to hurt your feelings.
Yeah, we know.
And now it's everyone's got it's just so easy to go write what you feel, which is fine. Have an opinion, but if you're going to say it to someone's face, because these riders do see what people are putting, and
definitely.
Especially with how mental health is these days. I mean,
yes,
back in my dad always says, "Oh, we didn't have bipolar and we just got on with it." But it's obviously
it's always been there. It's always been there.
Yeah, I mean, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder end of last year, so I was always sort of a bit, I guess, in the dark about the whole mental illness thing. But obviously, since having my own diagnosis and obviously losing Danny, and then obviously we lost Tony, then Blair, it does affect these boys. And I wouldn't write anything on social media about anyone that I wouldn't say to their face. And I think it's just, at the end of the day, these guys, even footballers, they're out there trying to entertain you. I mean, there was that footballer that broke his foot really badly, and I think it was by the Chinese or Japanese player.
Right,
and he was crying on the pitch after he'd done it, because he obviously didn't mean to hurt this guy, and everyone was just ripping into him on Facebook. And I'm like, what? Because the guy showed he had
compassion.
A heart and feeling. It's and I think that's the only thing that, not just in Speedway but any sport, it kind of puts a downer on it, is when people can be so negative about it, because it's not going to attract new people if people are seeing that. So
it's a bit like being in the school playground again, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But it's just, it's just, it's the harsh reality of social media and sports, or it happens with anything. I mean, the saddest thing with Blair is a lot of the posts I wrote, it was it was that guy that was on the Jeremy Kyle show. I mean, that's what a lot of people are going to remember him for. Not that he was a very talented rider when he was riding and went to Australia on these Young Lions tours and stuff. And again, it's because of stuff that's been put on social media, and it's everyone's got feelings, and no one really deserves to get them hurt.
No.
So it's just, for me, it's just keep it positive. Keep the sport positive, keep the riders' mental health positive, and you're potentially going to get the best product that they can give you.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, I've got an order here from Lawrence Rogers, Mattie.
Oh, okay.
It says Mattie Bates, and there's a bit of a pause, and he says, "Make sure you look after my two boys, Sheldon Davies and Aaron Butcher." He probably didn't go like that.
I'm sure he did go like that.
Yeah.
No, I definitely will. He's Lawrence has taught me well. He's always sort of looked out for me when I was a rider, and got me rides at every sort of track I was at. So of course I will. Yeah. They're my boys now.
I have for a little bit.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this question. In the closed season, although we are still in the closed season, sort of, you applied to go up to championship, and that didn't happen for whatever reason. You may want to talk about it, I don't know. Are you sort of happy it didn't happen there? Sort of, with everything that's gone on, it actually might have been a good.
Yeah, I mean,
where you are.
I think, speaking openly and honestly about. Obviously, we applied. We met the criteria that that was asked. For me, it felt like it was a bit like playing a game of football. But every time we tried to score, they were moving the goalpost a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was just my sort of perception of it. But I don't. Obviously, I'm somewhat employed by the BSBA as a promoter now. But obviously, I'm not at all the board meetings, and so I don't really know what goes on fully behind closed doors like that. But at the same time, they're trying to obviously piece it together the best they can with tracks spread across the country and try and give the best product and whatnot. So obviously, they have their reasons, and you got to respect that as much as you dislike it. But for me, I'm kind of glad we didn't go up when we did. After all, purely because it'd be nice to win something and do something at National League level. Like when I used to ride for Plymouth in the mid 2000s, we were always sort of in the playoffs or the final, and we won the National League trophy in 2009. And I think apart from the Premier League 14 tournament, I think it was 2013 or 14 when Plymouth won that. They haven't really won anything, so Mark was sort of, I'm going to put all the cards on the table and let's go for it. And I was fully behind him with it. We obviously were looking into riders and had spoken to riders and, had on paper, a pretty decent team. Or, obviously what we thought was a decent team and it wasn't to be. But I think that could have been a blessing in disguise for us, really. We've put together for this year, if we do get on track, at the moment, obviously 6 guys we feel can, do a good job, as we did last year, but obviously that didn't work out for us. But this year we feel we've put together a team strong enough to, if not be in the final, definitely be pushing for those top 4 playoff spots. So I think it could be a blessing in disguise for us not going up. And, every dog has his day. And, it's definitely our ambition to go up another league and, just grow our product and, bring in those, sort of international riders and those, people like Richard Lawson and Scott Nichols, these big names in the championship division. So it's definitely still in our thoughts and something we'll definitely be pushing for. I do think it being turned down ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Speaking as a Birmingham fan, we would love to have you. I've never been to Plymouth, so I'd like to get the opportunity to go and see the track.
Yeah.
The more the merrier.
Plymouth had a decent record at Perry Bar as well, didn't they? I think so.
Yeah, I think actually the last time we went, because obviously I took over from Lawrence. Obviously, he was there a year previous to me, and we went up there, and it was Lawrence's birthday, actually, because my birthday is the day after Lawrence's. So we went up. Obviously on the Thursday night.
And a few years.
Yeah. But we went up to Perry Bar on the Thursday and we just had one of those meetings where the whole team clicked and cracked on, and I was sort of loving it because, it was a bit bittersweet for me. Obviously riding for Lawrence, and I wanted to ride for Plymouth in 2017, but that deal didn't work out. So it was kind of like bit bittersweet, and especially being his birthday. But he had his curry after, I assume. So he was probably.
I would imagine so.
But they did turn us over down our place later in the season, so it was the other side of the coin. So it was, but no, it was good. We shook hands after it, and the best team won on the night. As when Birmingham beat us down our place, the best team won on the night.
Definitely.
We should have a look at your team. I mean, it does look quite a tidy team for that level. You've got Alfie Botel and Nathan Stoneman, 2 really good heat leaders. You've got Richard...
Henry Atkins, I think, is in there.
Yeah, Richard Andrews. Henry Atkins is an interesting one. And Sheldon Davis and Aaron Butcher. Where have I seen those names before? At 6 and 7. And both riders that I think are probably ready to kick on at that level. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously, the last 2 years, especially with the riders coming up from the youth sort of championships, you've had like Leon Flint and Carl Bickley and Jordan Palin and Jason Edwards and Tommy Brennan and those sort of guys, where there's still some good guys coming up, but there's not as many at the same standard as there was back then coming through. So this season, you're going to see people like Sheldon and Aaron that have been around for a couple of years at National League level, but sort of always been in the background. I think they'll really shine through this year and sort of crack on. I mean, they're both willing to. I mean, Sheldon's moving down to Devon when the season does finally get underway, and I really think you'll see them shine through. And I think Kent have got some good reserves. Sam Hagen is. I've known Sam for a few years now, obviously riding for Eastbourne previously, and he's just, every time I see him, he's just getting quicker and he looks really tidy and smooth on the bike. And, there's Jake Mumford and, Elliot Kelly and Nathan Ablett at Mildenhall is, even Connor King. I mean, you look at Connor King from the Isle of Wight last year and he improved. Every time I saw that guy on the track, he was improving. So I think all those guys that were sort of in the background over the last few seasons, I really think you'll see them sort of shine through now and establish themselves as not just reserves, but, good National League riders.
I mean, that's been one of the success stories, isn't it, of Speedway over the past year, is there's been quite a few good British riders starting to come through and make their mark. But there's also been some riders that have sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how we start. I mean, I'm thinking from a Birmingham point of view of Zach Vitanek, of course, and I still think that a lot of what happened with Zach was again down to social media. So, do you think that as a promoter and as a team promoter, you are responsible for helping those guys navigate that side of things? The social
media? Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we've had it before and. Say even when I was riding, we sort of had it, and it's just that hard one, isn't it? Because they're out there trying their best, and I've always said if you're not going to go to a track and give it 100%, then don't even bother getting the bikes up, because you're beat before you get there. So but that's the thing again with social media is, especially these younger guys, they haven't fully developed that how to take their emotions and obviously filter their emotions. So it's Nathan Ablett obviously got injured last year riding for Kent, and he come back for the Silver Ski Falls at the Isle of Wight, and he didn't have the best of meetings, and the lad still, like, at the time was 15, and I think Ben Wilson and Luke Bowen had come off, so we were all sort of down on track checking them and talking to Nathan and just trying to. I wasn't even his team manager, and I think Barry Bishop was there as well, and obviously he wasn't his team manager or promoter, and we're just trying to G him up because he was really down on himself. And I'm just like, I sort of looked at it then, and I was like, it's so hard because they are kids, and I think a lot of people that write stuff on social media or shout things from the terraces forget these aren't men; these are 15-year-old boys that are still at school, still in education, doing their GCSEs or whatever. And it's, would you talk to your own kids like that? So why would you talk to someone? That's how I see it. But then I see it from the other side of the fence. When you're at a Speedway meeting, you kind of do forget, like, these guys are 15, 16, 17 because you've gone to watch Speedway and you're paying to watch them win. But I always say, if you go to your home track and the away team wins, you've usually seen a very good meeting. Apart from when Mildenhall come to Plymouth in 2018, because that was just
Well, we all I think a few like that.
I think a few teams felt the wrath of Mildenhall that early part of the season in 2018. But no, I think they definitely, it's a lot of these guys are kids, and I just hope, like, obviously with these training schools like Poltech, and I believe Robert Lambert's doing one now where he's taking them over to Germany to train a bit. And obviously what Barry's doing with My First Skid. I think if it's not sort of in the syllabus of what they're learning, obviously about the mechanical side and the nutrition side of it, is also how to handle the social media heat and the media heat on that level and not let that sort of get into their head, because it can really have an effect. And it's so easy now for people to sort of get caught up in that mental health thing, because you can so easily just go to your doctor and say, I feel a bit sad, and they'll give you some antidepressants or whatever. And I think especially these kids, it's just trying to teach them to be a bit headstrong. But at the same time, as I said earlier, like, we're all people with feelings, regardless of we're 15 or 55. It's we're all out there trying our best, and if we weren't trying our best, we wouldn't be there. But at the end of the day, not everyone is going to make the grade, and there are going to be better riders that are going to beat you every time. And unfortunately, that's just part of Speedway. But all these people that like football and play Sunday league because they were never good enough to be semi-professional even, and then they play for the local pub. They still get to do what they love. So why can't some of these kids that don't go up through the ranks and fall by the wayside a bit, they should still be able to enjoy their racing at some competitive level than just doing second halves all across the country?
I think this is it, isn't it? I mean, at that age, you just want them to, they've got, if they do manage to make it, they've got, hopefully a long career again, ahead of them. At that age, you just want them to enjoy it and just develop the skills, interact with fans, which is obviously, a lot easier at national league level than it is at the two senior leagues. So,
I mean, I think as well, like, obviously a lot of these juniors have outstanding youth careers. I mean, especially if they started at the sort of 110cc, they might have had 4 or 5 years worth of racing experience before they get to National League. But it's a different kettle of fish when you get into league racing. I mean, I remember when it was the Conference League, and I was racing second halves at Weymouth and Somerset against Conference League riders, and I was, beating them and they were beating me. But it was, I thought, I'm ready for Conference League, and I reckon I could score a few, being like a young 15-year-old kid, and I guess a bit arrogant to it and a bit cocky to it. But and then you go and do this, and it's like, okay, wow, I wasn't expecting to be elbowed in the first corner or someone to run me right out to the fence, especially if you ever see me ride, because I ride so tight to the white line, it's almost like I'm playing golf. But, it is a lot different, and it is a lot tougher. And then, again, when you make the jump from National League to the chat, I mean, Georgie Wood, I think, is a prime example of it. He's absolutely phenomenal in the National League, but a little bit inconsistent at championship level. And that's not because he's any less of a rider. It's just that much harder, and that much more aggressive. And, these little split seconds that people make on you, like at the start, or if they get their wheels in line, obviously over 4 laps, that's going to add on to 2-3 seconds or whatever. So it's not, it's just hard. You've just got to be, I think, accepting of it. I mean, I always say now, if I could restart my career and go back to being 15 with the mindset I have now of it and the knowledge I have now of it, I probably would have been a lot better rider than I was. Maybe not talent-wise, but, in terms of how my professionalism was towards the sport, my attitude was towards it. Because when I was a kid, if someone wrote something bad about me on Facebook, I'd just go off and write something back to them, which isn't, it's not a good thing to do either, because it doesn't give you a good sort of reputation. Then if you're one of those guys that is a bit back chatty to fans, and again, you try and defend yourself, and you can look like the bad guy. So it's just hard. But I think, again, people just got to realize these are kids. They're still in school. It's
I think that's true. I also think it's true. Even some of these things hurt, even when you're 35 or you're 40 or whatever it is. Some of these things, some of the things that people can say about you and do say, because they can say these things.
Yeah.
Well, I think we saw last season, didn't we, in the Speedway Nation, some of the abuse that Chris Harris took on social media after the performance of the national team. It was just, there was no need for it, really. At all.
Well, I mean, it's the same. I mean, on the subject of that, I mean, Alan Rossiter took loads of abuse on social media with it. And again, like, obviously everyone is entitled to their opinion, but one, you don't know what riders were available. They could have other commitments, or they could be under a contract where it doesn't allow them to have that extra commitment. And obviously he's gone with the best riders that he had available. and he's tried to do the best with what he's got, and it hasn't worked. But obviously, with the Speedway of Nations, everyone sort of in that competition is a potential world champion.
Absolutely.
To a degree, you know. So it's never going to be, you know. I mean, you can look at Craig Cook. I mean, he got, you know, a bit of backlash for his GP run, and he gets more backlash now because he's a GP rider that is still in the Championship League, but he still gets beat in the Championship League.
Yeah.
So, you know, if he was unbeatable, then the BSBA and SCB probably wouldn't allow him to ride in it. But, you know, everyone forgets about Carl Stonehewer when he was riding for Workington in the GPs. You know, it's not like you just gifted it. You've got to qualify for it. You've got to earn it.
Yeah.
And, you know, he earned that. You know, a National League guy could earn that if he had a good run through the 1,700 rounds that you've got to go through. But...
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, Carl Stonehewer qualified for the first year on merit, and I think every single season he got back through the qualifiers. So he earned his place, similar to Andy Smith, even going back a few years. I mean, he used to get, you know, slaughter. Well, what's the point of Andy Smith thing in the Grand Prix? He's not good enough, but he was good enough to qualify.
I mean, I think that sort of got the same with Chris Harris for a little bit when he was in the series, towards the end of his run, especially. And it's like, unless they bring in a rule where if you're currently in the GPs, you're not allowed to do the GP challenge, so they can keep it fresh with new riders coming through. But every rider, if they've earned the right to go through to those rounds and get in that top 8 or whatever it is, then they deserve to be there, regardless of if there is better riders out there or not that should be in it. It's everyone had the same chance, and those riders excelled in the chances they were given.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a few things coming on the chat box. Lawrence has said thanks, Mattie, but they're only on loan. There's some people talking about. So Derek Turner says, why don't clubs perhaps run a media course where perhaps the press office could give riders help on how to deal with the media, especially the kids?
Great question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. You know, I think it's something that should be introduced if it's not already. It's kind of like when I had a break in Speedway and I joined a band, and we got signed, and we actually had this thing called media training. Mm-hmm. So if you're being interviewed, they teach you how to answer or dodge a question correctly.
Yeah, I thought you were good.
So and you know how to handle yourself in the way you present what you're posting on social media or out to the press, because obviously the press can manipulate stuff. I mean, we see it every day in the sun. You know, and I've had it as well. Actually, last year we had about a month period where we had a lot of track issues with the surface not binding together. Right. I can't remember. It was a national newspaper rung me up, and I had an interview. And they asked me about it, and you know, I was honest with them because you know there's no point of not being honest if you're being asked questions. And when I read the thing, I thought it was just going to be some little article, and it was like a half a page thing in the back. And I had this massive argument with Len Silver, and I verbally abused all the riders and made them go out and ride this track. And I mean, I did get a bit frustrated with the riders, like, because a few of them struggled and we stopped the meeting. And I just sort of said to them, I was like, look, the track is a bit patchy. It's not dangerous. The referees deemed it fine to ride. You know, if you've got to use your heads. It's, you know, there's two ways to a throttle in Speedway. If there's a load of dirt coming into a corner and you're backing off, the thing's going to straighten up and go. Mm-hmm. It's no good then when it's slick putting the revs on and it locking up because you're going to spin. So you need to do the opposite of that and come in on the gas. And I was telling him all this, and he was like, just completely changed it into something I didn't really say. And it never really got onto social media that much, but I had a few people come up to me at meetings and say, well, how come you said that stuff? Like, did you get fined for saying that stuff? And I'm like, no, because that's not what I said. And unfortunately, it's that thing, like, you know, I could say something now to a newspaper if they asked me about the BSBA or SCB, and I could tell them in the most professional way I could, but then they could go print that I've been slagging off Rob Godfrey, or I've been slagging off Neil Vatcher, but there's never going to be that infinitive proof that I did say those words or I didn't say those words. So I think especially with newspapers and magazines, it's gonna next day it's gonna be fish and chip paper. So, that's how I see it. But, with the social media, I think media training is somewhat just as important to learn than nutrition or how these guys should be warming up or, bike setups. Because if you fall off your bike and break your arm, you're going to heal from that. Yeah. If your head's full of bad stuff and you crash and it's because your head's not in the right place and you hurt yourself, that stuff can stay with you for a very, very long time. And, we see it with riders, who have retired now, who are struggling now. One of my childhood heroes is having a really hard time with his mental health. And, it's just very sad to see. It's very sad to see. And no one should have to go through it. Fan, rider, mechanic, management, no one. It's just horrible.
Well, Mattie, thank you so very, very much for being on today. I want to finish this interview off with a little spot that I've just invented. I'm going to do from now on. It's just I want whoever our guest is to finish his interview with telling me something really positive, either about their club or about Speedway in general.
Speedway in general and Plymouth Speedway. It's the only sport in the world where you can meet people that are not just your friends, but they become your family. And regardless if you don't see those family members for 5-10 years, when you see them, it's like no time has passed at all. It is phenomenal. I've been involved with lots of different stuff like bands and different sports, but Speedway has been one of a kind. And that's why I have so much faith in it still, because it's been so good to me. And if we all work together, fans, promoters, riders, those glory days, we won't have to talk about them anymore because they will be back.
Brilliant. I'm glad I said that. Now it's going to be a great start. What a great way to start it. That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Well, you take care and stay safe. And
you too.
Fingers crossed we'll see some Speedway later on in the year, and good luck with that.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good night, all. Ta-ra,
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.